Hey everybody, Lieutenant Joe here for Hope is Not a Tactic, the School Safety and Security Program. So, one topic that I see come up over and over and over again that is devastating to a school district, that is devastating to the students and to everybody else there, could lead to criminal charges against students. It can lead trauma to other students that are victimized, and that is hazing. Hazing in the school. Now, hazing is something that we've all heard about. We hear about it in college and we hear about it in high school. And it's one thing when you might tell somebody they have to wear funny slippers for 2 days to be in some sorority or a fraternity, and you have to walk around with them shoes all the time on. Okay, that's something. You might tell them they have to stand on the corner and sing the national anthem every 2 hours, every day for 3 days, right? Those kind of things are innocuous. In high school, there's hazing a lot of times in our sports teams, right? Where they get younger players that come onto the team and the older players, there's a hierarchy, there's a pecking order, as they say, in all of these things. And for the most part, it's benign, doesn't cause a problem. But every single year, sometimes several times every single school year, we hear about a hazing incident that got completely out of hand, that was victimizing to people, traumatizing to people, that lead to criminal acts, that lead to students being arrested, suspended, if not expelled, and then they're in the criminal justice system. The things I'm talking about specifically, we all know what they are. We know that sometimes these, and it's usually the boys, it's not always the girls, it's usually the boys, will get a younger team member and they will harass them, give them a hard time. And in many of these cases, as hard as this is to consider and to think about, it ends up in some kind of unexpected sexual assault on the person. Right? It's like almost like a mob mentality. It starts out maybe pushing, shoving, teasing, doing something with somebody. Next, somebody says, "Oh yeah," and then we're going to do this. And next thing you know, there's some kind of a sexual assault, usually with an object of some kind. And again, I know this is hard to talk about, but it's the reality, and it happens every year, if not several times. And you think after the last time that it happened, because it often will garner national attention, where people will find out about it. So here in my area of New Jersey, it's happened several times. And most recently, not too long ago, the boys who did this, I think 3 or 4 of them were expelled. 2 were criminally prosecuted for sexual assault. They will be tier volunteers for their tier participants for the rest of their years. Megan's Law kind of people. They have to report the rest of their life for what they did. And then there's the victims. These kids who just want to be part of a team and they get victimized and assaulted. It's horrific. So what do we do as administrators? What can we do as a district to make sure that doesn't happen? Well, I've written quite a few articles. I write for Campus Safety Magazine. I write for Blue Magazine. I write lots of places. I've written a very detailed article on things that you can do to prevent. And what's one of the first things you do? You have to have an awareness that this happens, right? You can't turn your head to it. You can't say, "Oh, that'll never happen in my district," because then it does happen in your district and it's a big problem. So one of the things I suggest is that you have training for all of your group leaders, no matter what it is. The choir, it doesn't happen usually with the choir. It's usually sports teams. But any group leader that's going to have responsibility for these kids in our schools should have training on how to spot potential hazing incidents, and then how to instruct the students that they are not to participate in this, and let everybody know if they involve themselves in one of these hazing incidents that involves one of these kind of assaults, they can be arrested, expelled, and it can ruin the rest of their life. I think these things happen because the kids don't realize at the time it's happening, it's going too far. And then you usually have one or two instigators that are pushing it along, and then something tragic happens, right? We don't want that to happen. We want to prevent that because the kids that do it, I guess some of them could be rotten kids, but most of them are just regular kids that get caught up in this mentality of this mob mentality, and they push it further and further and further. And next thing you know, someone is seriously injured, traumatized, victimized, and it could be a lifelong thing they have to deal with. Your district then has to deal with that. Your reputation is destroyed. Everything you've worked for to make your school a great place is that, oh yeah, that's the place where that kid got assaulted in that hazing incident. And it happens every year. So training for any group leader, training for the students in every group, letting them know this is not to be tolerated. We will not tolerate it, right? And you have to have a mechanism that maybe they can report anonymously that, hey, these kids are talking about doing something. The next thing you want to consider is that the parents have to know about this so they can talk to their kids and say, hey, don't you dare get involved in this. Don't be involved in any kind of a hazing incident because they can start out, like I said, innocent enough. And next thing you know, there's a terrible incident that takes place. So your group leaders should be trained, your students should be trained, your parents should be trained, and you should make it crystal clear that there'll be no hazing in the district whatsoever. Because anything short of that, if it doesn't get the messaging that it deserves, you can have a huge problem on your hands. So let's protect our kids. Let's make sure we do the right things, and let's not get involved in any of those horrible incidents of hazing. This is Lieutenant Joe, for Hope is Not a Tactic. We'll see you down the road. We have a lot more to come.